Have you ever cut your really expensive fabric only to find out that the bust point is way off where your natural bust point is, or the waist seam is not on your waistline? Let's make sure that never happens again. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing 3 quick checks that you can do before you even touch your scissors. Let's jump into it. Now, the first check we want to do is going to be locating our bust point, and it might differ from the pattern, but don't panic. So in order to do this, the measurements you want to take on your own body are your apex to apex. Now, this is the fullest part of your bust, usually your nipple, but that might not be the case for everybody. So just locate where the fullest part of your bust is, and you want to take that measurement from one point to the other. So on Matilda here, that is 16 centimeters, and just make a note of that and jot that down. The next measurement you want to take is your apex to waist measurement. And now to do this, you need to locate where your natural waist lies. Simply tip side to side, and where your waistline creases is where your natural waistline is. With a bit of string, or fancy bit of kit this, it's just a bit of elastic with Velcro sewn to it, create a waist marker, and you'll be able to tie that around your body and make sure your waist is marked. That's the point of a waist marker. Make sure your waist is marked without this budging. If you are going to use something as thick as this waist marker here, make sure whenever you're taking your measurements, you do so consistently across the board. So whether that is to the top of the marker or the bottom of the marker, you want to make sure that you are consistently measuring to the same area. So choose whether that is the top or the bottom. A piece of string is a little narrower, you should be fine with that. So once you have your waist established and you have a marker to guide you, you want to take your apex to your waist measurement at the center front. So just go to the center front from the fullest part of your bust to the center front of your waistline, and just jot that measurement down there. The third and final measurement you want to take, just so you can cross-reference this onto the pattern, is your highest shoulder point to your apex. Now this is where the neckline, a standard neckline, nothing fancy, nothing wide, would sit. And we can take that from the shoulder line, is where the neckline would sit, down to the apex there. So for Matilda, that is 24. Her apex to waist is 16, and her apex to apex is also 16. So make a note of those 3 measurements, and you'll be able to cross-reference them accordingly to your pattern, giving you a good indication if this is going to fit you in the right places. So now with your pattern to hand and your measurements noted down, we can start to cross-reference our original bust point to that of our actual figure. And so on this pattern, this little intersection along the bust line represents the bust point. What you want to do is halve your apex to apex measurement. Now this is your center front line. We are working with half a front bodice here, and so this is why we halve the apex to apex measurement. Now on this pattern, how this is drafted, this apex to apex measurement is 10 centimeters. Now I know that Matilda was 16 centimeters apex to apex, and so half of that would be 8. So I already know that I need to shift my bust point over by 2 centimeters. And I'm just going to do a very small mark there before cross-referencing the highest point of my shoulder to my apex measurement. And now you can bring your ruler in, and that was 24 on Matilda. And I can bring my ruler in and pivot it until it hits the same line where we've just measured across. Now this is actually a millimeter or so lower, ever so slightly lower. So I'm shifting it across and down. That is going to look different for everybody. What I can then do, now that I've established my new bust point, so I can draw a line through it here. This is my new bust point, ever so slightly shifted down and across. I now want to move my waist dart. So what you want to do is draw a rectangle around that waist dart. Doesn't matter what size the rectangle is. And I'm then going to cut this out. What I will say is I want to make sure that this line here is parallel to my center front line here. So we just want to use that as an anchor, as a marker. Once I've dissected it, I can just shift it across in line with my new bust point. I just want to align the point of the dart to the bust point there, shift that across and stick this in place. And I can slide some paper underneath here And I can simply true my waistline off like so. Just true this back off and change the shape. Now when it comes to the shoulder dart, of course, dart manipulation does exist, and this is where we pivot the volume of one dart into another area of the pattern. We do cover that inside the DPL Atelier, but if you are just hoping to relocate your bust point and maintain the same style as whatever pattern you're working on, what you want to do, this has the shoulder dart located right in the middle of the shoulder seam. And so another measurement you can cross-reference is absolutely your shoulder measurement, and just make sure that this distance here plus this distance here aligns to your shoulder measurement depending on the style. I'm going to take the measurement in between my dart. So my dart legs at their widest point is 5 centimeters, and I'm going to just mark the halfway point, which is 2.5. I'm then going to connect my bust point to this halfway mark before drawing in my new dart legs. And my dart legs are going to go from the dart leg opening to the new bust point. And I can just draw that in. Now the reason I have marked halfway up here is because you'll notice that these dart legs stop shorter than the bust point. Now this is going to vary on everyone, but the reason we don't sew right up to the bust point is it creates quite a pointy nipple. Now if you're going to turn this into a princess seam, this doesn't matter as much. But for the sake of this amendment and this video, what you want to do is you just want to shorten your dart by about 2.5 centimeters or an inch from your bust point. Now this measurement will change depending on the size of your bust. If you are a smaller bust, you can get away with getting closer to the dart point. If you have a larger bust, you might be stopping your dart 2 inches or 5 centimeters short. So just play around with it, because we are accommodating for that fuller volume. But I'm going to go with a standard 2.5 centimeters. I'm just going to mark that there before redrawing my new dart shape to meet that point. And so my bust point remains, my bust point is accurate, but my new dart legs have shifted over and they've shifted down to coincide with that bust point measurement. Now when you come to cut out your pattern, what you want to do with your new dart shape in the shoulder is you just want to fold that along the stitch line and fold that closed. And you may have to true your shoulder seam, and depending what pattern you're working on, you might also have to add seam allowance. If your seam allowance is included, truing the shoulder seam should be fine. If you need to add seam allowance, do so at this stage with your pattern still folded. You can keep it folded with a bit of masking tape if you need to, and you want to add your seam allowance. Hypothetically speaking, you would add that seam allowance all the way around, depending what project you are working on. And you just want to cut out your pattern with that fold in the paper, because when you reopen it, this will have changed the shape of that shoulder seam. And so if I redraw that in, you'll see what I mean. And so you can see this wedge here has been introduced. And so we've shifted our dart over, we've located the new bust point in relation to our figure, and we have applied those amendments to the pattern. The next measurement worth taking is your nape to waist. Now this will be easier if you do have a waist marker on, as you'll be able to feel it behind you, but this is from the centre back of your neckline down to your waistline. This is going to help you with the bodice proportions, and if you do need to raise or lower the bodice, you can do so from the lengthen or shorten line. Understanding and establishing where your horizontal balance lines are going to really aid you in assessing the fit of the pattern. A second length measurement I would like you to take is from the waist to the hip, and now the hip is the widest point around the lower half of your body. Now don't forget, wherever your waist marker, if it is a thicker waist marker, you are measuring from the same place consistently. And so understanding your nape to waist, your waist to hip, or your apex to waist measurement is going to really help you plot the length and proportions of your garment. And what you might find is your pattern comes with a lengthen or shorten line. Now, cross-reference those measurements. So on your back pattern piece, this is your centre back running down here. You can take the nape to waist measurement. This is at 42, but let's say that your actual nape to waist measurement was 38. So you just want to come in and mark that accordingly. I am going to square off. By square off, all I mean is drawing at a 90-degree angle to your centre back line. We are drawing this perpendicular. And so this is where your waistline is sitting. I'm now going to dissect. If I just take the measurement from that line, that is 2 centimetres. So I know that when I come to shift this up, I want that to be 2 centimetres below my lengthen and shorten line. I want to shift that up evenly and just measure that all the way across. Equally, if your waistline is lower than that on the pattern, then you would just be shifting this into the other direction. You can secure that in place, and you can true out your side seam. Any amendments you make to the back pattern, you must make to the front pattern as well. And so we've measured that pink line from the shorten and lengthen line, our waistline marker, and we have just shifted our pattern up accordingly. Again, if it was longer, you would be moving it down, inserting paper underneath and truing out your side seam. Make sure you apply this to the front pattern as well, and you can use your apex to waist measurement to help you locate that too. Finally, and arguably most importantly, are your simple bust, waist and hip measurements. Now these should always be parallel to the floor. So your bust line goes around the fullest part of your top half, like so. It's okay if you put a couple of fingers underneath your tape measure. This is just going to incorporate natural ease as you take that measurement, and you'll be able to cross-reference that not only with the sizing chart on your pattern, but the finished garment measurements as well. Same applies to the waist. This isn't always the narrowest part of your torso, but as I say, if you tip from side to side, where your torso creases is where your natural waist lies. And then your hip circumference, don't get it confused with your hip bones. This is actually a mid to high hip measurement. Your hip should be the fullest part of the lower half of your body, and this usually goes around the derriere, the bum. Now you might be between sizes on your pattern, and that's okay. What this is going to allow you to do is grade out between them. And so if you're a size 14, whatever that looks like for the pattern company, in the bust, but you are a size 20 in the hip, then you will be able to slowly grade out that pattern and ensure you're cutting something to fit you from the offset. So finally, with your circumference measurements to hand, you are now able to grade between sizes. So establish whatever this is for you. This could be 6, 8, 10, 12. It could be 18, 20, 22, 24. Whatever that is, just establish what size your bust, waist and hip measurement align to and cross-reference that to the pattern. And if you are smaller in the bust and larger in the hip, you just want to connect at the bust line, the waistline and the hip line between your sizes. And so what that could look like is something like this. So we're going to go and true from the smaller size to this size to the largest. And you can start simply by doing straight lines. So I'm going to go from my bust line to my waistline, which is here. And then you can go from your waistline to your hip line on the larger size. And so it's as simple as that, just connecting them like so, but then you just want to true out. There's no strong right angles in the human body. And this is what your new side seam to your measurements would look like. So before you cut your pattern, why not give these 3 quick fit checks a try and let me know how you get on in the comments down below. I promise you it will save you fabric, it will save you fitting headaches, and it might even save some tears along the way. If you fancy deep diving into anything I have covered in today's video, I have linked the DPL Atelier down below for you to have a little look at our one-stop destination for exploring your fashion education. So you can build a dream wardrobe that is designed by you, made by you, and worn by you. For now, stay safe, keep creative, and I will catch you on the flip side.